So Civic Action has a great history of being a grassroots organization that brings to bear on significant problems in the region the best minds and focus. And so I think there's a great future for that. Sev and I are just the next generation of people to focus on that, but there's lots of issues that the region faces. We're proud of the conversation that we've helped to start and maintain on transit, so that's going to continue to be part of what Civic Action's about. There's a focus we're going to be taking around youth unemployment, particularly for barriered youth who have a real challenge. There's almost 80,000 in the Greater Toronto Hamilton area who aren't at work, aren't in training, aren't in school, and so it's taking those big problems and then taking bright people from across government, from across business, from the not-for-profit sector, bringing them to a table and finding solutions. So it's the same mission, but it'll be the 21st century mandate for it, focusing on the problems that the region's facing now. But on transit, it's going to be about keeping that focus. And so what we're doing during the campaign, a couple of fun things, postcards being handed out across the city through employers to voters, just to remind them of the issues so that they can bring those questions to all candidates meetings, ask their candidates. We've actually got a tracking on our website of the various local politicians, municipally and provincially and federally, who've agreed to support the idea of dedicated funding. And we have probably the most fun thing is our Sammy the Sardine, who's traveling around, just to remind people about what it's like to be squished on a subway platform. But it's all those things to keep the conversation going and keep the focus going. So it goes all the way from defining the issue to defining, at least in the broad context, what the solutions are, and then keeping people talking about it.
2 years ago, this conversation around transportation was largely between the media, politicians, and transportation experts. And through the work of Civic Action and the campaign that we've done, along with others in the Move the GTHA collective, this is now the water cooler conversation in our city and across our region. People are fed up. And yes, we know the hard costs of inaction. $6 billion a year is lost to productivity because of congestion, but transportation is also a jobs topic. We can't get to our job interviews on time. It's a family challenge. We aren't able to get to our kids' soccer game on time, and we're not able to, sit around a table collectively and have those quality moments that we expect. So I think the need for transportation to come to the forefront has happened, and as Rod indicated, we now have each of the major leaders of the major parties here in Ontario committing to dedicated transportation funding. That's new and historic. 2 years ago, we weren't hearing these kind of conversations. I think that's progress, and that's worth celebrating.
We hear a lot about the idea of youth underemployment in addition to significant youth unemployment, but for 80,000 youth, 15 to 22, we have folks that aren't in job training, they aren't in education as formal education, they aren't working, and yet we know that employers need employees. We know that there's work that needs to be done. So very much in the Civic Action model, the idea is bottom up. There's been 800 conversations that have already happened with young people, with employers, not just large employers, although they're a huge part of the answer, but over 85% of the jobs are with small businesses and medium-sized businesses who don't always target that, sometimes their idea of their employment program is putting the help wanted sign in the front window. Well, how do we connect them to these young people? It's something, when you look around the world, that frankly is a challenge all over the world. So this is a problem that's not unique to the GTA, but it's something that we think, with all the smart minds and dedicated people that we have around our table, will bring them to focus on this and the solution. And this is something I like about Civic Action. Our job isn't just to think about things and then say government fix it, right? Government plays a role, but this is a huge place where business plays a role, where employment agencies and the not-for-profit sector play a role, because there are many programs to help young people get jobs, but we still have this problem. So where aren't the connections happening, and how can we facilitate that dialogue? There'll be a role for government, I'm sure, but this isn't always about, and has never been for Civic Action, about government solve everything. This is about everybody get together and solve a specific problem. We are getting denser and denser. One of the ways that you can look at the GTA and the Greater Toronto Hamilton area is to think about it a bit like an island, right? We've got the lake on one side, we've got the escarpment on the other side, we've got a green belt wrapped around us. As Canadians, though, we've never thought that way. We think about boundless, endless space, and we're just going to keep growing forever. Well, if we think of ourselves as being on an island, we have to think really smartly about how the transportation infrastructure intersects with what we're doing from a planning and density perspective, and what that means particularly accountability to things like our public space. You know, people who live in this city and in this region have come to really be able to appreciate the large amount of public space we have, relatively speaking. But that isn't a given going into the future if you don't think smartly about those things.
The average condo being built today is about 650 square feet. In 2008, it was about 850 square feet. We're getting smaller. Our homes are getting smaller. I mean, I live downtown and we have 2 young children. Our backyard is the size of this little room. So we thrive in and frankly need those public spaces to be able to have the high quality of living that all of us around the city have aspired to and hope to see.
Well, you know, is the transit problem going to be fixed? You know, we should never be satisfied until we fix it, and that's going to take a while. But it's about what could make the community you live in, the city you live in, the towns you live in, because we cover a region all the way up to Lake Simcoe, better. And then what would it take to make it better? And the answer is always leadership, which is one of the things that we do. We generate young leaders, but we also bring leaders together. It's always focus, right? And there's always some resources that are required about it. So we bring leadership, focus, and resources to bear. And finally, what's you know, very real life about it is a prioritization, right? Because when people look around, they see a lot of things, you know, but we've got to focus on a few things that can make the biggest difference to make Toronto a better city, make the region a better region.
Do you think?
Well, and that's how residents live their lives. We wake up in one part of the city, we travel to another part of the region for work, we may travel to visit grandma and grandpa in another part of that, our doctor's appointments may take us to another part. We live as a region. The fact that we put our perspective from Civic Action's side as a region, I think is really smart. And when, you know, other companies are looking at where they're going to invest, they're not looking at Ward 28. They're looking at the GTHA proper, and I think it's important that our major institutions line ourselves up accordingly, because that's how we get the true resources in line to make an impact.
One of the things that previously the chair of Civic Action was able to do was actually chair a meeting of the regional mayors and chairs and have that opportunity to have those conversations with them, sometimes with the provincial government. And those are very powerful opportunities, again, because I don't want to say we don't come in with an agenda, but we come with a clear agenda that isn't a partisan agenda, and I think that's where solutions start to form. Now, you know, the reality is, if we're seeing it in the provincial election now, then it goes back out and different parties come back with different solutions, but that's great, right? If we've got 2 or 3 competing ideas about how to face a problem, I suspect something will come out of that starts to move towards the solutions we need.